All right, welcome back to my spiritual harvest. I just wanted to put this post out because we had a very interesting Sunday school today, and it was talking about prophets and prophecy. And one of the things that one of the revelations, which most of us probably, not most of us, but some of us know, is that if you are a prophet designated by God, you will receive prophecies, right? However, just because you receive prophecies don't necessarily mean that you are a prophet. Meaning that there are times that God will give us something to give to somebody. It may be once in a lifetime. It may be once or twice a year, or maybe, sporadic. But in your heart, in your spirit, that God has not listed you as a prophetess, but he has used you as a vehicle to prophesy. But not to prophesy, but to give a prophecy is a difference. So anyway, in the midst of doing this, they was talking about, one of the questions was, were there any women prophets? So of course we say yes, they were. Went to the Old Testament, and what is the name? Was it Myra? Wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. I know it. Wait a minute. Is it Myra? Myron? Oh man, what is the name? I think it was Myron. Wait a minute, hold up. I wanted to pull it up. I think it's, oh goodness, I can't remember. And this is so unprofessional. I'm sorry, but nonetheless, I think it's Miram. I think it's how I spelled it, but nonetheless, it was talking about how God gave her, he made her a prophet, gave her a prophetic word, and in her doing so, she went beyond what God told her to do and added her own little tidbit on it. And for that reasoning, God punished her like severely. So I'm gonna let y'all read about it and give it all to you so you can go and read it up on yourself. But he punished her severely. And one of the questions, one of the comments and the conversation went to is that we are flawed people. We're going to be flawed, and that nobody's perfect, but once we fall, once we not necessarily sin, because a sin, it could be a sin of transgression, so they're two different things, but nonetheless, we're supposed to quickly try to, hold humbly before God, ask forgiveness, and try to correct this wrong and get ourselves together. But one of the things that, one of the points I made, and one of the things I want to make here is that I had to look at myself, because, I do a lot of human rights work. And anytime I get any information, anytime I research something, I'm always letting people know the findings. And people always ask me, you're a teacher? Sometimes they ask just simply because of the glasses, but a lot of times they'll say, are you a teacher? And I'm like, no, I'm not no teacher. No, I'm not a teacher. And one of the reasons is because I found in James 3:1, it talks about how many of us shouldn't be quick to become teachers. For the simple fact that we are teachers, not gonna say we yet. Teachers are judged more harshly than anybody. So I always was like, try to stay away from saying I am. But the fact of the matter is, I constantly give out information. I'm constantly doing research. So that what I would be considered, even if I don't accept it or not, that's how I'm going to be perceived. So because I'm being perceived that way, I have to be very careful. And the information I'm giving, how I'm giving it, and mainly if there's information that God has given me to give to people, I have to say it the way he said say it. I have to present it the way he said present it, and do not add anything else to it, or I will be punished like what is it? I think it's not Myra. God dang, I can't believe remember this lady's name for the Bible. But nonetheless, but I think her story was in Exodus. But nonetheless, it goes back to her, because when you look at her and her punishment was so severe. It's not because she faltered and went out of the will of God and did her thing. Is that she was in the middle of an assignment, and in the middle of that assignment, she added on her own tidbit. And God was not thrilled about it. And so there was the punishment. So again, I'm saying this because there's a lot of people out here. There's a lot of people on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that are coming across as teachers, constantly giving information, mainly not just posting information for people to read it for themselves, but I'm talking about mainly those who are talking. And you still have to be careful if you're just posting something, because if you're posting something to somebody else, that means you are in agreement with it. So you got to be very careful about that too. But I want to say that because there are a lot of people just speaking from themselves. And there are a lot of people saying, well, God told me this. But then if your discernment is right, you can kind of pick up, no, that's not what the Spirit is telling me. Something ain't quite right here. So the discernment will be able to let us know if this person is a false prophet, or not giving a correct word or extending it. You can kind of feel, you will not kind of, but you feel it in your spirit. So I just want us to be mindful that even if you're not considering yourself a teacher, if you are putting things out there, if you are, whether it's verbally, whether it's visually, and people are learning from it, make sure that it's correct, make sure it's accurate, and make sure it's in decency and order. Because again, people that are considered teachers will be punished more harshly than anybody, because you are feeding into God's people. And if we're feeding into God's people wrong, we will be held accountable more swiftly than someone that's not. For instance, if God is saying for me to tell you all, like when he told me, about discipline, that discipline, our understanding of discipline and how we read it in Proverbs, when you go from Proverbs 29:13 down to 29:29, one thing people get misconstrued is because the beginning of Proverbs is that very direct language. The latter part is not. So when people read that, they think that this is what it says do. Like you're supposed to whip your children. It's okay to put the belt to your children. That's not what it says. And I'm not going to get all into it because I do have a video about that goes right into what that is. And how we got mixed up saying spare the rod, spoil a child, which is not in the Bible. It's by a guy named Samuel Butler from the 1600s. And again, it's in that video. So we need to understand what that is. So if God is telling me to tell you this, and and all that information he gave me, that's again another video and I'm saying it to you, and then at the end I want to add to it, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble because that's not what he told me to say. So that's why when I'm talking to people, we have to be very clear that if God give us something to say to someone, sometimes he just wants us to say it and get up out of there. He don't want us to linger around, because we can be susceptible. We become susceptible to add to it, because now people are asking us questions beyond that which we supposed to be answering. Because one thing about God's word is said it will edify and exalt, which means it will stir and lift the person up. So even if the person is not in full belief or understanding of it, it's going to resonate in their spirit one way or another, and they will know that what has been said is to be true. So we don't have to get into a whole bunch of explaining and all this other stuff. So we have to be very careful, because there has been actually a few times, but one time in particular I can remember when God had said, I kept saying, well, I was going to order something online. And this was some years ago. I ordered something online, and I didn't want to use my own cards, so I went and got like one of them disposable cards you load up. And when I was going to the bank, I said, "Well, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna see what they got. If not, then I'll get it from the Giants and stuff like that." So, nonetheless, I ended up getting it. But on my way there, I kept seeing these letters. So I knew the name, and I said, well, maybe this is a friend of mine. Maybe it's her daughter. So I immediately started praying, because I'm thinking, okay, hopefully her daughter's okay. I just prayed, a nice general prayer. So now this was the day before. So as I'm going to get it, on my way back, I see it again, biggest day. And I'm like, what in the world is it? And I kept saying the name. Then all of a sudden, the Lord showed me it's somebody I met when I went to the dentist's office. And he said, take this. First, he told me to call him. He said, call him, tell him you need to come by to talk to him. And I remember for over a year and a half, just every time I would see her, she was like, how come you don't call me? You'll never call me. I said, I could never find your number. Every time this woman gave me her number, I could not. When it came time for me to call, I couldn't find it. Then I said to the Lord, when he said call, I was like, Lord, I don't have the number. He said, look in your phone. I look in my phone. And sure enough, there's her number. So I'm baffled because I'm like, this number was not in my phone. So I call the number, didn't get an answer. I leave a message. I hang up. God said, call back. I call back. She picks up. And so I told her, I said, well, I need to, is it possible to stop by? I need to give you something. And she said, oh, okay, no problem. So I said, okay, and I asked her, where was she? Because I'm just riding around while I'm doing all of this. And so be it, I was only 5 minutes from where she lived. I had no clue. So anyway, as I'm heading there, God said, give her this card, this gift card that you just put this money on, and you tell her I heard her, and you leave. Don't have no conversation. Don't stick around. Just leave. I said, okay. So I get there, and so I walk up. She said, you want to come? I said, no, I can't come in. And I, just like God said, I said, God said to give you this, and he said that he heard you. And she just like looked at me like that. And I'm like, okay. She said, you want to come? I said, no. She said, wait, hold on. I said, no, I gotta go. Because I'm like, I gotta get up out of here because I knew that if I stayed there and talked, I was gonna be in trouble. So I got up out of there at 3, 4 in the morning. The young lady calls, or the young woman calls, because she's a woman, young woman called, and she was so beside herself because she said at the time when I first called her, she was praying. And she was praying to God because her car broke down. She didn't know how she going to get it fixed. She didn't know how she going to get her kids back and forth to school. And so the next time I called, she said because she heard it the first time. She heard the second. She didn't hear the first time. She heard it the second time. And she got the phone. And so when I told her, she looked at me in shock. Is because she was praying, to God, and that's what God did. So one of the things I want to say with this too is that sometimes we'll get an overflow. And we happy, like, I got this extra, I can do this, I can do what I want to do. But we got to be very careful. And once we get that overflow, say, okay, wait a minute. Lord, is this for me? Or is this supposed to go through my hands to somebody else? What do you want me to do with this? Because it clearly wasn't, it came in my name, but once it was cleared, it was clearly not for me. So, but nonetheless, I got up out of there. But if I would have stayed there and if I would have did anything else, it would have been a problem. One of the reasons was when I got back and I got in the car, and I remember I asked the Lord, I said, why is it that every time I went to call this girl, I said, Lord, I know this number wasn't in here. This number was not in here. And he said it wasn't. He said he hid it because it was something that he knew he was going to need to do. And if I would have kept talking to her, she would have thought that came from me, and she would have been praising and thanking me instead of God. So that's why he didn't allow me to have no contact with her outside of the business when I would go there and get service, and that was it. But he would not allow me to have any other contact. So when he made his move, she would know who it was from. So again, we got to be very, very careful about how we work on God's behalf. And if we're claiming to be working on God's behalf, even if we know, we're not just claiming it, we know we are, but we're expressing even in our actions or verbally or whatever it is, we have to be very, very careful that we do things in decency and order so we don't get in any trouble. All right. So, and another thing too, is he was talking about taking on titles, because I'm not a title person. I cringe a little bit of these title things because I think we already separated so much that, extra titles, I understand we need them in certain situations. I understand. But I just feel we get separated so much, and then people get on their high horses and things of that nature. And that's one of the things that we were discussing as well today in Sunday school, was, again, how somebody could call themselves something, but God didn't assign it. That's something they assigned to themselves, or man assigned it to them, but God did not. And we got to be careful, because a lot of times people can get puffed up because they figure they got this sense of power. Even if God assigned it to a person, sometimes, God is trusting them, but, they go wayward. But we can always pull back. So this is just to say, anyone that can be considered, whether you want to consider yourself a teacher or not, anyone who is constantly giving information, that you're trying to encourage, enlighten, motivate, give people knowledge in any kind of way or anything like that, be very mindful that you're doing it in decency and order. Mainly if God is telling you to do it in a certain way, please do it in that particular way, so you will not get caught up in that. And I want to let me find this real quick, because it's bothering me, and I gotta I gotta make sure I got this name right. Let me see here. Because I can't believe I can't remember this name. Miriam. There it is. I knew it was something M-I-R-A-M was M-I-R-I-A-M, Miriam. So that's the one I was talking about, how God made her a prophet. He gave her a prophetic word to give as a prophecy. And in her doing that, she went wayward and did some other stuff, added on to it, and caused herself some grief. So I just want, I'm not going to, it's like I said, I believe that was in Exodus. But I'm not going to tell you. Yeah, it was in Exodus. And I'll put you around in that way. Check Exodus. Maybe start in that 15. But I always tell people to always start at the beginning and read all the way through, because a lot of times if we just take a synopsis or just a little parable or something of just a small piece, sometimes we might not be fully understanding what we're reading because we didn't get the latter part, the greater part of it. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So as we go on, and like I said, I done accepted the fact that whether I want to be called one or not, in God's sight, because of what I am doing and all of the information that I always give, the studying I'm doing and all of the stuff that I'm bringing forth, that I'll be considered that. So I know, regardless to what, I got to continue to be careful, continue to watch my words, which I've always done. But again, now seeing, even though I read that teacher judged more harshly many, years ago, but now that I can attach it to this Miriam and see what happened to her, because just imagine if she would have said the thing that she said, that she added on to that, and she was, just say if she wasn't given that prophetic word and she just did what she did, of course God would have been like, hey, I'm gonna have to check you on this. But because she was in the assignment when she did it, it became harder because she was a teacher, and that's why her punishment was that much more severe. So y'all, please be careful out here. Rethink. And I know people don't like to hear this, but we are in the last days. Look at everything that's going on. It's clear that this is where we are, and this is what's happening. We got to make sure individually as well as collectively that we get ourselves together. We stay together, and we just stay right, because I'm telling you, it's nothing like things taking coming to an end and you're not prepared. Because I tell you, can you imagine just like right now, if everything had boom, and then you see people rising up and you still sitting in your seat. Your spirit ain't, you just sitting there. Everybody's beside you. I'm not having that. Excuse me, I'm not having that. I'm not going to do it. Excuse me. I'm not going to do it. So anyway, peaceful dreams, sweet awakenings to all. If this is at night, if this is in the morning, have a blessed day, have a marvelous day. And always, always strive for wonderfulness. All right, bye.